The Passport of Mallam Ilia by Cyprian Quincy, Chapter 3. Death on the Train. I lost sight of Usuman again. After the war, my friend obtained for me the passport you are holding and took me into French territory. My whole idea was to rest from active life and to turn my attention to peaceful pursuits. I hoped one day to visit Mecca. Every time I thought of DJ and the school children, I longed to go back to that city. After a few years of a rather roving life, I finally settled in Fort Lamy, trading quietly and pursuing the studies begun by Mallam Ilia. I came back to Nigeria in the early 1930s and lived peacefully until the World War II broke out. Despite my age, I managed once again to get myself into the British Army. That was 1940. Something is fascinating about the army and fighting that I cannot understand. You make up your mind that you will never fight again, but when you hear the bugle and the drumming and see young blood uniform, your fire is lit and everything ceases to matter save the desire to hold a rifle. So it was with me. I could not handle a rifle, but should be with the boys and watch them. We went to East Africa, we came back, and while the others sailed to India and Burma, we who had already seen action remained in the country. But everything has its end. I grew tired of army life. Late in 1947, that is, earlier in the months before I entered this train, I applied to be discharged from the army. This was easier enough since I was old and the war had been over for a long time. As you may gather, I had given up the whole idea of avenging Zarah. What I wanted was to go up to Kano, live peacefully for the few years left, and wait for the Great One to call me. I boarded this train, which is now carrying us. I felt the climate in the north was bitterly cold. It was early this morning. I went into the restaurant car to ask for something hot to drink. I have a weakness for strong coffee, but there was no coffee, and I was told to go into the dining section where the white men had just finished a meal. There was a man there who they thought would bring me some. I went. A big man had his back towards me, and he was cleaning tables and singing gently to himself. "Greetings," I said, and he turned round. I have never in all my life been more surprised. The shock was so great that for a moment everything went black before my eyes. I couldn't believe this. It was not true. To have been traveling around the African continent for so long without seeing Usuman, and now to meet him face to face alone in a railway carriage. He was not much changed. He had put on a lot of weight, which was not surprising since the profession of train steward had brought plenty of food. His eyes had softness which comes with age. His cracked lips trembled. "Ilia," he gasped. "Yes," I said in a whisper. "It is I." "Still alive?" "Yes." "You are old now and feeble," he said. "That we shall see." As he spoke, he had begun to maneuver around the compartment. I watched him. When he came opposite the door, I threw a knife at him, aiming to pin him against it. But he was out and I followed him. For the first time in his life, I believe Usuman made a wrong judgment. He had gone out probably with the idea of escaping into another carriage, but the last coach in our train had no door into it. It was the goods van. We were both trapped in that narrow lane between the two coaches. He could not go back into the restaurant car without pushing against me, and I could not move forward without facing him. One false step and one of us would spin down on the rails to be mangled by the rolling train. We stood there looking at each other. Each of us knew as we faced each other that whatever might have happened before, this was to be the end. I could see his eyes darting here and there for something with which he could defend himself. Suddenly, he rushed at me, and my foot shot forward and caught him in the stomach. He stopped like a car whose brakes have been suddenly jammed on. He groaned, clutching at his stomach, and sank down on his knees. I was surprised. There had been nothing in that kick, just a mere straightening of my old leg, and there lay Usuman, terror of the north, reeling and gasping with pain. For one desperate moment, his body lay wedged in the yawning aperture. When he realized that he might sleep and be crushed to death, he tried to pull himself up by the sheer strength of his arm. I pressed forward to help him, but we were passing over a bridge, and with the jolting, he hit his head on the metal upright. I heard him scream. He held on tight to me and tried to drag me down with him. It was a terrible struggle. He held me in that death clutch, and I fought to draw back. The knife in my breast pocket dug into my side and was held there as we rocked the motion of the train. You've seen the wound. When Usman's body fell in a sudden crash down onto the bridge, I must have fainted. Frankly, I do not know how I got here. I do not know whether people have heard that the steward is missing. My friend, I'm going to die. It has been a hard life, but Zarah is avenged. I have only one regret, and that is that Allah has not thought it fate for me to see DJ again and explain myself, and to gaze upon the child she bore me.